Karma's trick. She seemed to have the best luck. All right. I know it's late. You want to not hear people talking anymore. I would like to hear some more music from Andy. I know he's got his crew back there in the corner. It was exciting to see those folks come on in. Some of his good friends from high school and music fans. And I particularly had Wendy make a list with some other people that are connected to us through music, because not only all the people here that I've worked with and that sort of thing, but some people that several people mentioned some of the music events we've had over the years, and so I'll reference that a little bit. First thing I wanted to do is make sure that you guys saw part of a Tuck family tradition is to make these little banners. So Ellen Monroe and Parker made these banners when we were on vacation a couple weeks ago in Michigan all together. I also wanted to make sure people might get a look at these posters from some of the Shindig shows we've had. Carpenter Ants are prominently displayed on a couple of these. They may not remember that coming to those events, but sure enough, they're on here on these 2 years. And the Greens are always on there. And of course, for those of you that know Mike Pushkin, the House of Representatives member, he's on there with 600 pounds of sin with hair as long as Ted's there. So in case you know Mike. And some other good acts. So these are just for, it was pretty amazing. We put together some pretty darn good shows in those years. I don't know how we afforded it, but Missy Story was here earlier, and I think she was kind of the primary engager of sponsors and things like that. That's a lot of work. I also have some pictures here that I didn't know how to present them exactly, but one of them, and I forgot to ask Kelsey or Brooke or Denise, but one thing I'd hoped that they could have brought was Nick Berry, when he was helping us put the new shelter together, made these creatures. I just have pictures of them, but I think they still exist. Yes, yeah, they're in Kelsey's office. And we of course love that Nick used pieces of building materials that were in the new shelter when it was built to have. I also have a couple of pictures here of, not many of you would know John Tanzen, but there's a picture of John standing up on a pile of desks that we got from Bureau of Public Debt or something, so that's kind of an interesting picture, because it probably violated some kind of OSHA there. And then several people mentioned the Tinkerers, and there's some pictures of some of the kids that we had come around tinkering. And let's see. This, for those of you, I think it was Lisa mentioned Missy Jones, who was one of the people that helped with getting the neighborhood work started. And I seem to have somehow have a picture of her son graduating from the Mountaineer Challenge Academy. Just caused me to remind of the reach that people have talked about. There's also a picture of her daughter acting kind of goofy at a little Christmas party or a birthday party there. And here's a picture of Luke that we've mentioned several times tonight. Here's me singing karaoke with, I don't remember that guy's name, but it was probably a good song. And then here's a picture of Greg Higgins when he was younger with Sue Moore, what was her name? Buchanan. Marge Buchanan, and Betty Brooks. Is Betty here?
No, she was going to come. I don't know what happened.
Yeah. And Joe Santer. And then here's a picture of Carol Barth and Dana McGuire receiving an award that I got for them. So those are just some pictures that I pulled together. I thought I would just, one thing that I look at Facebook every now and then, and Michelle Pritchett put a post today about being an includer, and this is an interesting group because there's probably some people here that don't know too many other people, and it's kind of a good chance to reach out. Obviously I'm kind of a introvert, so I'm not necessarily the one to do that, but I think it would be a good opportunity in the time after this breaks up. I do hope that Andy plays some more songs, since we invited 15 or 20 of his ravaging fans to come. But I wanted to do a little bit of walkthrough of my career as it relates to most of you, many of you, just partly because, as I told somebody, it's like that fable about the elephant. You know, you might have, blind person feels the trunk or the leg or the tail, and gets a different picture of an animal. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is, by bringing a lot of people together, that we would do that a little bit. And so several people have mentioned that Robin Wilson there in Spencer was one of the first people that we moved to West Virginia with Wendy and I and a few other people. And yesterday, for the first time in my life, I was referred to as a carpetbagger. Because I'm not from West Virginia. We came with some other people, and I'm looking at Michael Lipton and Larry Gross and a few people like that too. But I hope it's been conveyed tonight and in general that I'm really rooted in West Virginia. Wendy and I are committed to being here for the rest of our lives. And so that carpetbagger, I just kind of laughed it off. Many of you might know who might have said that to me. Jeff Fox. Some of you know Jeff. He actually called me a carpetbagger yesterday. But we came to West Virginia, as Wendy said, in a community that lived outside of Spencer, and that was a very formative thing. Thank Robin for some very insightful community building that we did there, and he certainly had also an interesting and distinguished time here in West Virginia, and we have some other friends from that time. And as Wendy said, we became foster parents and then moved to Parkersburg. And I was so glad to see that Delbert Casto and Kim Tiemann were here tonight. You guys wave your hand or something. So in 1982, the three of us, along with a ragtag group of 20 some other people, began work at the Wood County Child Care Center, that for those of you that are from the community longer knew it as Hall's Acres. And Kim is quite a bit younger than me. She was just fresh out of college. I'd already been vagabonding around the country. And I don't want to have Delbert or Kim tell the story that they both seem to remember. But that was an interesting, formative time. I think all three of us, I wanted to have a roast about 10 years ago at our 30th year to see where our careers had gone off in different directions. Those of you know that Delbert has been the community service manager before his retirement here in Wood County, and Kim is a program manager with the Benedum Foundation, and did many other interesting things in her career. So that's kind of my introduction to this kind of work in Wood County. And then the next step was, as several people have mentioned, what we call the shelter care facility. I became the director there in 1984. Chris Pauken isn't here, Lewis isn't here. She was the first director there, and got the place off to a good start. And the people that Lisa already had stand up it's a good reunion opportunity for them. You know, Rick, Greg, Ed, Howard, my birthday mate, along with Lisa's son, and I, as we said, there were many things that we did in that early years of that shelter that would have been violations of not only rules and policies and OSHA requirements and things like that, but I'll mainly target that Ed was the practical joker that did many things. I seem to recall that you even sent Chris Pauken on a trip to pick up a kid or something that didn't exist, or take a kid somewhere.
I don't remember.
And Greg put no-bake cookies around the toilet one time. So we did things like that. And if you, I don't think Kim Kramer's here, is she? Kim, there's a picture forever embedded in the books, the picture books, of Kim laying on the kitchen counter smoking a cigarette. So I don't think that happens anymore. But those were good years, and of course Jeff and Dave worked through those years too, and Jim Lopresti was mentioned. I always gave Jim as an example of somebody who could come and work 1 year and really make an impact, whereas many of the other people we've mentioned worked for quite a long time. And I use, just as a stepping off place there, I always use the lines from Bob Dylan's song "Tangled Up in Blue" to talk about, you know, how our lives have evolved a little bit there. You know, all the people we used to know, they're an illusion to me now. Some are mathematicians, some are carpenters' wives. Don't know how we all got started. I don't know what they're doing with their lives. Because I know everybody that worked there then has gone on to some other kinds of things. And it's been exciting to see and know that period of time was both a commitment to the kids that we serve, but also a stepping off place for other kinds of work. During that time, I was so pleased to hear that several people were coming that worked with the DHHR at the time. Jack Barnes was, I don't know, different titles during the different evolutions there, but we always considered him our main leader in the DHHR through quite a few years, and he and I worked on a lot of collaborative partnerships and things like that, and you know, not to be trite, but they just don't make them like they used to, as far as the kind of person that Jack was to work with agencies like ours and think of all the best needs for those kids. Jane Barnes and Kathy Alford were probation officers there. Tammy Jones was a DHHR worker that we worked with during those years, and that was such an important time, especially as I changed to different regional and state levels. The partnerships that we had with those local department officials really grounded me in the fact that that's where the work was getting done, and that's where people knew what was good for their communities and that sort of thing. The partnerships that several people have mentioned that I developed and worked with in the community, many of you people here represent those kinds of contexts. We kind of mainly invited Ernie and Mandy Douglas out of their love for music, but Ernie was an attorney, Ernie the attorney, we called him in those days, that worked with a lot of the kids, and those were strong partnerships, because, you know, when you know an attorney at the local level that really can relate to the kids' situations, that was pretty valuable. The other night I bumped into Barry Thornton at the rowing club, and Barry's been a foster parent and an adoptive parent, and helped a lot of older youth So those are kinds of examples of partnerships that we've had. In the wider community, Shannon Bragg and Derica Boyer are from Genesis over in Clarksburg, and now all across the state, and they represent to me some of the strongest partnerships with other agencies that we've worked with so well. We've got Sam Hickman that retired last year and had to do his retirement by Zoom. But it was a great event, and he had people from Europe and all different time zones participating in that. So, but Sam, most people that know any kind of social services work know, the partnership that he's provided to people. John Apgar, I think when he came in, either some people had him as a student in different eras, but John was our special contract teacher for the kids that couldn't be in school at the shelter, and did some really innovative things with those kids. I don't even remember what years that was exactly, but until a certain state official wouldn't allow that program to continue. So those were just some of the partnerships. I did want to mention, I appreciated that several board members from Children's Home Society have come here tonight, and of course they represent quite a few others across the state that I was really pleased to have be here. Since many of the people have spoken, or there's ones that many of you would know, are the local CHS staff are obviously dedicated to all these programs that have been mentioned tonight. And then of course the state level Children's Home Society people that are here, Mary and Chris, and Michelle and Julia and Tracy, and folks like that. I would just want to also mention Deb Barthlow and Joanne Boylo, because there was a time in the organizational structure where we were kind of comparable positions across the state, and I worked with them for a very long time and appreciated that. And then as it's been referred to several times, I wanted to mention some of the music friends that I've developed over the years. I guess you can probably know that I'm pretty proud of Andy, my son, and his band, The Greens, and 18 Strings, for them contributing to a lot of our events. We had something that we called the Green Stocking event around Christmas for several years, and kind of counter to the Red Stocking campaign the agency does. My good friends from Charleston, Larry, Michael, Ted, Crystal, connected to Mountain Stage and the Carpenter Ants, have participated in quite a few memorable shows up here, as well as supporting me in their own way down there in Charleston. But also quite a few people here, Randolph and Jenny. Randolph came up and played at several of our tribute shows. Nick Berry, he did some of the earliest shows we did, different Americana shows, as well as being the one that I mentioned that made those art objects and did some handyman work at the shelter. And Nick and I have to get back together, because I thought I maybe had promised him something that we might do as a project together when I got back to town. So Nick's waiting for that call, as he said. So it's been mentioned, Ann Griffith, a friend of Wendy's and mine, that helped with that one project, but we're glad she could be here. And Scott Bixman, who's a friend of Marty's, and his wife, who's a counselor at Van Deventer, have been good friends and supporters. And the Lows have been great fans of the Greens and Mandy's music for the years. So, and now Monroe and Ella are, I think they think there's a fire drill or something. They're putting their heads down. Tired of hearing me talk. So, I just want to say how lucky I've been to work with all of you. That's really the only conclusion I have. It is hard for me to hear a lot of compliments and things like that, because I just feel like the work goes on that way. But I appreciate everybody coming. I think it served a good purpose to get people together. And you know, every one of you has the you know, the best interest of Children's Home Society and the work we do, especially here in Parkersburg, at heart. And thank you all for that. I didn't want to finish with one quote from Woody Allen, who might not be considered in the highest regard anymore, but I had this on a little slip of paper that said, 80% of success is just showing up. And so I kind of feel like that's a conclusion to my my career. I take it from Larry, who comes up with some pretty good little quotes from, and he's in Danny Rose, right? One of the. I did have some other notes from people. Many of you know Beth Morrison. Just today got a nice note from her. And some of you, only certain people of you, go back far enough to know Mark Fredo. But back 20 or 30 years ago, Mark Fredo and I used to exchange each other's name badge at conferences to confuse people. And one time he got arrested for shoplifting down in Pipestem. And the people came back and said, "Steve, you have to go to the magistrate court tomorrow because they think you got arrested." So Mark sent me this picture of him now being arrested with my name badge on it. So I had a few things like that to chuckle about. And then I don't know who to give this to exactly, but maybe Jeff Sikorowski. But 2 weeks ago, when our family was up on vacation in Michigan, they had a little retirement party for me then when the kids made those banners and my family made fun of me and that sort of thing. But those of us from a previous generation knew that my father had written a book back in like the 60s that's called Step by Step in Better Board and Committee Work. And I was looking through it the other day, and it really has some good, helpful insights into good board and committee work. So I think that's it. I hope some of you will be able to stay around. I know some people can't. Hopefully I got to at least say hello to most of you, and we'll those of you that are around Parkersburg will see me around, and those who are traveling, I'll track you down, or you can track me down. We'll stay in touch.